Welcome home. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. We are Baltimore positive. Positively a big week around here with the NFL trade deadlines and creativity, and the Ravens taking off for Minnesota this week. And lo and behold, the season is over. Baseball is done until the winter trade deadlines and money and all of that stuff. And Alan and Luke and I got together last week on the Maryland Crab Cake Tour and revisited all of that, including the new manager who's going to get introduced near the Harbor and Camden Yards this week. He wants to welcome you all to Camden Yards. I'm going to welcome you to Coco's in Lauraville on Wednesday for the Maryland Crab Cake Tour. It is all presented by our friends at the Maryland Lottery. I'll have Raven scratch-offs to give away. Also, our friends at GBMC keeping me healthy. Colonoscopy, fellas. This is my big month. Going to be talking about it all month long. The special milkshake they're making me drink a day or two before. So some of you are nodding your head and saying it's not so bad. I know I'm a sissy and all that. But that's why I have gentle, neighborly friends at GBMC to keep me square. Also keep our injury report square. Not a lot of injury report this week. We have trade deadline stuff going on this week. Luke will be on the hill monitoring all of it, including whether they're even being honest about the injury report or not. We have trading deadline. We have all sorts of things going on this week. You can find him in Owings Mills, and if you're on our WNST tech service, you'll get all the breaking news first, the way you always do, including if the Orioles do something beyond hire a manager, which they're doing this week. Luke and I are actually going to talk baseball in the middle of a football week here because that was one for the ages. That's a pretty good World Series, Luke. We didn't get together every morning and talk about it and do all of the meanderings we used to do when everybody cared about the World Series. I was actually at Leonard Raskin's event on Saturday night out at Costas in a special function room with dueling pianos and beautiful children and great crabs and all of that. But like third inning, I was watching on my phone. And I'm like, Leonard, I love you, but I got to go. And I'm doing a segment with him this week, and I'm like, I got to go. And I went home, and it was quite the theater. Is it the theater that of the unscripted that baseball would love to have make more fans of the game?
I mean, it was fantastic. I'm 42. Probably the first World Series that I can remember really, really watching and following was probably the 1990 World Series. I mean, I'd seen bits and pieces but that's the first one I remember really kind of watching. And I mean, the Reds sweep the A's, but 91 was the first great World Series that I can remember watching. And that's always been, I don't know if it's the top one on my list, but it's certainly up there. And it was great. You had two teams that were worst to first. The Blue Jays were worst to first in the American League this year, in the AL East. But you have the Dodgers spending more money than anyone, right? And all of that. But it was just a fantastic World Series. I mean, when you and I have spent quite a bit of time talking about Yamamoto here, going back to when he was an out away from pitching a no-hitter at Camden Yards.
Now you were there that night, right?
It was 21-31 night, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and he was literally an out away. It was fantastic.
I felt so bad for you. I still do.
I felt bad for him, right? I mean, he came that close, but for him to do what he did, which, okay, Randy Johnson in 2001 with the Diamondbacks against the Yankees. But when you are citing Grover Cleveland Alexander in the 1926 World Series, which anyone who knows me knows that I am a super nerd when it comes to early 20th century baseball. I mean, I love, whether we're talking dead ball era, the Black Sox scandal, Ruth, of course, all of that. But
Luke,
I mean,
Ken Burns, Jones.
Yeah, I mean, it's folk hero stuff, to throw 96 pitches and then you come in and you're pitching in extra innings for your team to try to win the World Series. I mean,
and that's above and beyond Ohtani hitting a couple of bombs and then coming back and pitching after 18 innings and then starting game different. 7. Like,
It's just different. I mean, Ohtani's
I
his
really thought
own.
Spanky Kirk was going to hit a double down the line and light Toronto on fire. Like I believed all the way through, but I am kind of happy that Hoffman didn't win after blowing the kiss and all that. So F him. And
Right,
Shannon
right.
Marie got to win. She's Baltimore through and through. I saw her on the field. She's happy. I mean, I feel the worst for Getty, and his
Yeah.
son. So
And just, Blue Jays fans in general, I suppose. Although I've said this to you over the course of these playoffs, that you have to remember, I was born in 1983. I was 10 years old when the Blue Jays were great. I mean, the Blue Jays were the Yankees for me as a kid. I
See,
mean,
I was the Oakland A's, and my
right.
first World Series was
So,
72. So 72, 73, 74,
yeah.
there's a lot of Oakland A's being the bad guys. A
Yeah.
lot of
So
Oakland A's being the bad guys.
not that I sit here and have this disdain for Toronto, but it's just weird for me to think about them in those terms. It's weird for me to think about them in terms of this team that had this long drought, right? Especially when we're here in Baltimore talking about the Orioles having a drought that's 10 years longer than that even. But I mean, just it was great theater. I mean, even go back to game six, I mean, the whole series, the 18 inning game. I mean, it was a heck of a World Series. And look, I can be as guilty of being cynical as anyone when it comes to baseball, the business of it, payrolls, the future of it,
I was
brand,
in the
how
same room with Katie Griggs last week, by the way, and you and I
all
hadn't
of
even
that.
talked about it. Yeah.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, when the players take the field, it doesn't matter how much money they're making, right? They're competing. They're in the arena at that point in time. And I mean, it was great theater. I mean, it really was. I mean, from just the fact that the Blue Jays came home with the series lead, suddenly as crazy as it is to say it, because it's the Dodgers are the underdog at that point in time. And for them to win game six and you force game seven. I mean, how about the fact that the guy who hits the tying home run, I mean, was someone who had been benched because his bat had been so bad. I mean, what Rojas did, with one out in the ninth to tie the game, and Muncy hits the home run the inning before that. He hadn't exactly had a very good series, and I mean, it's just great. I mean, Mookie Betts got the big hit in Game Six, and Mookie, by his own admission, was, I mean, dressing himself down about how bad he's had been in the World Series, and I mean, it was just, I mean, there's so many big names on both sides. I think if you're an Orioles fan, you take some heart in what Toronto did, because how many times over the last calendar year had I made the comparisons that Toronto was kind of what the Orioles were just a year or two ahead of time? And you think about what Toronto, how they fell apart last year, how their previous trips to the playoffs, they hadn't won any playoff games, and then they put it together and they were that close to winning the World Series. That's where, if you're an Orioles fan, you say, okay, we've got to have a heck of an off season and got to spend money and make trades and make smart moves. And uh, Albernaz has to be a good manager, and they've got to hire a good staff. But no one thought about Toronto in terms of being a pennant winning team going into 2025. And look what they did. So it was just a great story all the way around. And it was a great World Series. I said it to my brother after Saturday night's game had ended, right before I went to bed. I said to him, I said, it, I don't want to be a prisoner of the moment and say definitively that this was the best World Series I've ever seen, but I'd be hard pressed to not have it in my top three of my lifetime. Just how the drama of it, the both these teams. I mean, like the interesting contrast. I mean, the Dodgers being the defending champs, the Blue Jays coming from last place a year ago. I mean,
Oh, the whole
it's
Canada
great.
America thing, and
Oh, I mean, that
the
part
two
of it, sure.
stadiums also in the Washington blue. But more than that, the fact that the weather was good in Toronto, and I say that as a guy who's froze my ass off at World Series games for years and years and years. There was something about no rain delays, no snow delays. The roof was up. It was comfortable. That you got better baseball. I thought, and I thought if I were to say something about it, the stars sort of shined all the way
Sure.
through. You know what I mean? And it went the distance, and it was worth it. And and it had Canada versus U.S. It was like a Rocky fight. Yeah, I can't say enough about it. And even the stars stepping up. I mean, the kid Rojas is a hero at the end of the game. He comes on. He seemed like like the kind of guy you want on your team. Like, you know what he
Yeah.
seemed like? And I always go back to this with Buck Showalter. This is the last press conference I attended at Camden Yards. I went in and they all sneered at me. This is years ago. Were you at the Buck Showalter press conference? Are you that old?
I was at a lot of Buck Showalter.
No, the first one when he got
Oh, the
introduced.
first one. Yes. Yes, I
Yeah, I
was.
was
It
there
was in the
that day.
warehouse. Yeah.
Well, Buck's wife alluded to it when she wrote that beautiful status about me on Instagram a couple years ago. But that was the day I heard him say pile diver, and I'm like pile driver, like no, like like a wrestling, like Gordon Soley, like a
Yeah.
supple, like, and I'm like pile diver. No, the guys that dive on the pile when you win a World Series. I'm like, oh yeah, like that kind of guy. And you only get 25 of those a year, right? That are real pile. It's like, are you going to win the Stanley Cup? Is you going to get your name on the cup? It's that sort of, are you that guy? And both of these teams had those kind of guys,
No
and in a
question.
lot of ways, in a lot of ways.
I mean, say what you want about the Dodgers, and yes, they spend so much money. We all understand that. They also have won because they've had players like that and Kike Hernandez and guys of that nature who aren't making $150 million or $300 million, right? They have not just spent a lot of money, they have been very smart in how they put together their rosters, in how they have at times duct taped together their rotation like they did in last year's World Series.
Who was the
But
wrestler with Know Your Role? Who's that?
I mean, The Rock said know your
Oh,
role.
Know Your Role. There you go. Got to know your
Yeah,
role. Yeah.
but they've had that. I mean,
Even he
yes.
said, I'm not a superstar player, but I had a chance to
Yeah.
help the team
Well,
win.
and and,
That's
and that
cool.
and that was the other. I mean, look at some of the defensive plays that were made uh, in that ball game. I
Oh man,
mean,
all the force outs at the plate, right? All
I
the infield in and all of those drills you're running in February when it's 52 degrees, in the backfields and not Vero Beach for the Dodgers anymore, but you know what I'm saying?
well, no. Well, how about in Game 7? I mean, you had a collision in deep left center field where
Almost
you know
cost him the World Series.
Pages or I'm trying to
And he
I
was
think
the
it was
defensive
Pages at the time.
replacement. Yeah,
Yeah,
center.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, but I joked with someone. I said, man, if the Orioles were playing in this World Series, their defense would have lost it about 4 times already. But I mean, it was great baseball. It really was. I think it had something for everybody. Yes, there were elements of the modern game, and sure, there was no shortage of home runs. I mean, how about I mean, Bo Bichette was shaping up to be
The hero.
this incredible hero. I mean, how
Right.
about the fact that George Springer manned up and played through pain the last 2 games of that series with, side oblique, whatever it was. I mean, the kind of injury that typically keeps someone out 3 or 4 weeks, and he's back in a matter of a few days. And I get it. It's Game 6 and it's Game 7. I mean, but you just had so many great individual efforts and performances, whether you're talking about the stars, as you mentioned, or the unlikeliest of heroes, like Rojas. I mean, it's just incredible. It was such an entertaining World Series. I didn't really going back to what I said about how I perceived the Blue Jays as a 10-year-old compared to all these years later. Now where they're trying to end this long drought of a World Series title for themselves. That I didn't really have a strong rooting interest. Like I know a lot of people were very much like anyone but the Dodgers, and I get that. And in
I
turn,
didn't care who won either,
yeah,
right? I
in
mean,
turn, there
yeah.
were Orioles fans who said, "No, I'm not rooting for someone in the AL East," and that's fine too. Like I'm okay with either line of thinking. But I honestly sat back and I was just so entertained by this series. It was just great. I mean, it really was. And I saw right before you and I began our conversation, I saw on social media like that it was front office sports. The early indication was, I think, across all Fox platforms, Game 7 was 26 million people. Whether that's accurate or not, I don't know, whatever. But people were engaged. I had people in my life who aren't 1A baseball fans by any stretch of the imagination, and they were completely drawn into the theater of
I went home because I just wanted to
it's
sit and
great.
and I like
It's
John
great.
Smoltz, and obviously Ken Rosenthal and I have a relationship that goes back 40 years, so I have some sense of pride that he doesn't understand
Mhm.
about watching him in the dugout knowing of this life relationship I've had with him, including being in those dugouts doing games together. And I've brought that up at various points, even with Shannon a couple weeks ago, that Rosenthal was on my left and Mitch Albom was on my right when Leyritz hit the bomb at the launching pad in Atlanta that night
Mhm.
and shut down the Braves. So like I have these moments of my journey in life that through the World Series marks my birthday every year, marks the end of one year and the beginning of another as a baseball guy, that I'm with you. I think of I mean, there have been a lot of good World Series, and there have been
Sure,
some
sure.
turds and some duds or whatnot. But I mean, the Indians and the Marlins going seven, you don't think about it like that. But the Indians came this close to having a. How many teams came close to having a parade and not got one
Mhm.
or never had one in some cases? That's sort of the sort of game sevens. And yeah, I feel bad for Getty and his grandkid. That's where I was on it. That's kind of why I wanted them to win. That was my silly little rooting interest. But there was, some Oriole parts of this and Sir Anthony Dominguez and the anti Blue
Yeah.
Jay sentiment a guy your age would have, or the anti-Dodger sentiment anybody who follows economics in modern America might want to have, or pro-Canadian or anti. But dude, I had nights every night during this, and you know this because I was on the road. We had the football game on Thursday night. I was at a Cameron Crowe, Cheryl Crow symposium in Nashville. Wednesday night, I was at a Brian Adams, Pat Benatar concert. So you can imagine, and it was a night that Pierre Robert passed away in Philadelphia, who was a little bit of a legend to me. I was a little starstruck the one time I met him and took a picture. And I'm in Philly the night Pierre Robert dies. But more than that, I'm in Philly at the space across from where the Phillies played the Blue Jays in '93. It got me thinking of crashing at Kurt Schilling's house that night because I did. And he pitched game five. And now I'm in Philadelphia at the hockey rink, and all I'm thinking about is when Lindros got blown up on the ice, and I was there that night, and the Devils, that was a game seven that I went to with Scotty P. And I'm in all of these weird, and I'm in the space where Live Aid was. I'm standing pretty much where Rick Ocasek sang, sang songs in the middle of Live Aid, and I'm like in this space, and the dude next to me at a Brian Adams concert is wearing a Canadian flag hat. And he must have thought I was Canadian. Maybe I looked that way, my hair, I don't know. But he started talking to me. He kept giving me updates. Dude, it's 4-1. It's 6-1. And the excitement of and I am meanwhile modern guy I am at the Country Music Hall of Fame on Thursday night watching the entire first half of the game on Amazon Prime. My kid's going to get $8.99 a month. I'm so concerned that I've hoodwinked my daughter-in-law into $8.99 a month. But I watched the game while I was at another event. Like this is the modern connectivity of all of this stuff of staying a part of it. But baseball goes where you go. Now, we'll say this. Game seven, Leonard Raskin had his big party, and there's crabs as big as my head. He got Costas to do it, so you know it was really good. And I'm there, and like third inning, I'm like, dude, I gotta leave. And Pete got upset at me. Pete's like, my bar's right here. The game's on. Go up and watch the game. I'm like, I've eaten two dinners. I've eaten crabs, four giant crabs. I've eaten two bowls of soup. I had pit beef. There was an ice cream truck outside that I had wet nuts. Don't tell anybody, but I got the wet nuts with the butterscotch. And I felt like a balloon when I got home on the couch watching the rest of the game. But like I needed to be somewhere to really focus on it. Concentrate. I said to Nick and Pete, I said, I don't want to eat anymore and I don't want to drink anymore. Why do I want to be at Costas at 10 o'clock on Saturday night watching game seven? I mean, I love you, but like I'm just done eating and drinking, and I really wanted to focus on the game. And I think there was something that was very unforgettable about it, right? I mean, if you watch Game Seven, and really unforgettable if you made it through 18 innings the other night too, because there's a part of it to me. Again, I will always have been at Brian Adams at Game Five the night Pierre Robert died, sitting next to the Canadian guy who was over the moon, about like giving me updates on the game because I got my phone. I'm not looking at the baseball game if I'm at Brian Adams. I'm just
Sure.
not. But everybody's glued in. We're all kind of one on it because it's the World Series, and um, it was fun. It was worthwhile. It was meaningful.
it was so fun. And another part of this, and I alluded to this because I mentioned Yamamoto and the folk hero status that he gained when you throw 96 pitches in game 6 and then you come back the next night and throw 2 2/3. Like I said, it's Grover, Cleveland, Alexander in
Dude, how many Hall of
1926 stuff.
Famers, right?
But
Like
I
15 years from now, all these guys are going to go to the
was
Hall of Fame. I mean, Scherzer was involved in this series. I
no,
mean,
I was getting ready to make
incredible, right?
I was getting ready to make the point. In game 7 alone, as much as we all, and I do this as much as anyone, as much as we all complain about the modern game as far as how pitching is structured and the reliance on bullpen arms and max effort, and no one's going deep into games anymore and all of that. And look, that still applies, right? That's not changing. But in game 7, we saw Shohei Ohtani, Tyler Glasnow, Blake Snell, Yamamoto looking like Grover Cleveland Alexander on no days rest, Max Scherzer, Yasavich, who you and I haven't talked about much, but what a great story he has been. A guy that
and there's always one of those, right?
A
There's
guy that
always one of those.
a guy that was in single A at the beginning of 2025 and pitching in the World Series in big time moments.
That's a movie, right?
And even throw Shane Beaver in there. Yeah. Another guy, former Cy Young,
who was hurt.
And we even had a cameo of Clayton Kershaw warming up in the pen at one point in game 7. He didn't get in the game. I mean, that is just incredible right there. The names that I threw out there that
but you haven't thrown Mookie Betts,
7.
Freddie Freeman.
Well, I was just talking about the pitching. Yeah. And then
how many of these guys are going to be in the Hall of Fame in a game 7, America versus Canada, like all of that? It really is one for the ages in that way. That's
no
all
doubt.
it is.
And I will say this, with full admission that there have been times I haven't been as nearly as high on this individual. I still don't know how his contract's going to age with what kind of player he is and body type, position he plays, all that. That said, Vladimir Guerrero had an epic postseason. He absolutely did. And there's another example. If you're looking for hope as an Orioles fan, when you've seen how these young guys have fallen on their face in their first couple trips to the postseason and all that, go look at what Vlad's numbers were in the postseason prior to this year. And then you see what he did. I felt, you mentioned feeling for Geddy Lee. I did feel for Vlad because I get it. The Blue Jays backed up the Brinks truck for him, couple Brinks trucks for him, and all that. And he's going to be making a ton of money. But when you hear him talk about being a Blue Jay, being in Toronto, being there long term now, there's a genuine sound to how he talks about that. I don't think it's, yes, he wanted to be paid in the way that any great player wants to be paid, right? But I do think there was a genuine feeling of his desire to stay there. And for him to play the way that he did, even in a losing effort, I mean, it was...
His dad never won the World Series. I mean, I was looking to say, did his dad ever play in a World Series? His dad played in one in Texas the last year.
Yeah,
at 2010 at the very end. But, like, his dad never even played in a World Series, like, till the end of the end of the end. He hit 071 and 16 at-bats, 14 at-bats. He had one hit, 14 at-bats.
Then the Orioles gave him a bunch of money.
Then it was time, like Sammy Sosa or Palmeiro the second time around, or Eddie Murray the second time around, or Jim Thome. Dude, I mean... Katie Griggs doesn't want to meet me. I'll just say that. I agree. If you have anything more on Guerrero, I just want to do 2 minutes on the new manager.
Yeah. No, I just, he was a great story. I think Springer coming back to play in the last couple games was a great story. Bo Bichette has the big hit. I mean, it's just, there were so many, whether you're talking about big names and future Hall of Famers, or whether you're talking about Miguel Rojas and what he did, or how about, we haven't even mentioned Will Smith. Right. I mean, he hits the
Fresh
game.
Prince.
So, I mean, it's a great World Series. It was great for baseball. It's a heck of a way to end your season.
Dude, 2 nerds like you and me have talked about this, like 15, 20 names we've thrown out. There have been so many guys that had a moment, like literally, right?
I was in church Sunday morning. I must have had 5 different conversations with people about how great the World Series was. I mean, I just did.
It's just so intimate for me, right?
It was just great.
Like from the minute, like Joe Carter and me having been there that night in Game 6 and all the part that it brings back to me, Kevin Gausman being involved in it, right? Like just there were angles all the way through, including, and I'll drop I don't think you know this. My cousin, have you ever met my cousin, the tennis player, who lives in San Diego? My female cousin. She's your age. She maybe a couple of years older than you,
I
maybe
don't
by
know
one
if
or
I
two.
have.
Maybe 81, 82.
I've never
She
been to San
played
Diego.
tennis at the University of Arizona. She's been a recurring figure in my life. She lives in Carlsbad, California. She's my San Diego cousin, right? Like that I've talked about for 40 years. She went to her senior prom with Mark Pryor. They went to high school together.
Hmm.
So every time I see Mark Pryor, I bust her chops about it, right? But like he's in the bullpen behind Otani. He's in the bullpen behind
Yeah.
Yama. And to me, he's Mark Pryor with pinstripes and pitching for the Cubs and going to win 300 games and like all of that. Like it just had so many. And then there's Rosenthal in the dugout and Verducci in the other dugout and pieces of all of it. And I think about John Smoltz, who was always just a gem of a guy with me. Smoltz was a bit of a co-host on my show when I was nationally syndicated in 99, 2000, 2001. Smoltz probably did 30 or 40 hits with me on the radio because he was practicing to do this for a living. So he always would say to the sporting news guys, I think they paid him $100 or something to do hits with me back in the day, literally. But I had John Smoltz on all the time. So like all of it is very familiar to me in some sort of fun way that makes it even more interesting to hear what Junior, which is what everybody who knows Ken Rosenthal calls him, what Junior has to say, what Smoltz is saying. I just find all of it to just be good. And
It's
I'm
great.
going to miss it. And I'm going to miss it. I'm going to miss it on Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night. And I had dinner with Barry Trotz last week in Philadelphia amongst all of this other crap that happened. And I had to admit to him, I haven't watched a hockey game in 7.5 years. He's trying to pull me back in. And then I went to Nashville and I saw all the Predator stuff. And I'm like, I didn't know Stamkos plays for you. So, I mean, there's all these stories. And then there was the weird part of a Tony Robbins image showing up in front of Magic Johnson the minute that the World Series ended. So there was still a lot of spooky stuff going on around here, and we have a trading deadline. But new manager, I just want to give you 1 minute on new manager. Any level of expectation, any thoughts be above and beyond what you and Alan spoke about last week in regard to that? Because it's kind of a momentous beginning for the Orioles, or re-beginning, rebirth.
You hope so. You hope so, right? I mean, I think everything we've heard has been positive. Everything we've heard has been promising. I think, as we mentioned, and look, I can't sit here and say with great conviction that I had known a whole bunch about Abernez other than the fact that his name had been tossed out there, with some other jobs going back to last year even. But Rays roots, Cleveland Guardians roots, I like that. Those check boxes for me because those are organizations, regardless of getting into payroll discussion, which
you just like that they had an honest hiring. They went out and they got the best candidate in the marketplace, according to several people, and it wasn't. We're hiring Rick Dempsey. No offense to you, Rick. I love you, or Elrod or you literally within the family.
Not even
we're hiring
that.
Cal Ripken and Billy's going to manage the team. Like because they've done plenty of that around here, right?
They have. I mean, not Elias, but yeah, in the past they had done in some instances where they'd done that, but. And for me, the other thing was I like that they didn't just go and hire someone with roots with the Astros, right? Like someone that they knew. Like this, I still have not. I mean, and we're going to hear the press conference on Tuesday. You and I can reconvene and we'll see what we think. We'll see if they quote win the press conference or if it's fine. I
he
think
didn't win
fine.
the video last week. That's for damn sure. That was a poor. That was a poor entree.
It's whatever. I mean. Look, he's from Massachusetts. I'm not surprised to hear him say Camden Yards, right? I want to know if he can manage people. I want to know if these guys will be pile divers for him.
You ever meets me, better have a sense of humor.
but he's known for being like his players really respected him and liked him and played hard for him. And Stephen Vogt, who is a manager, a newer manager in baseball right now that I think highly of, replaced Terry Francona in Cleveland, thinks the world of him as well. I mean, they're close. Obviously, they had a relationship, but I just, I want someone that's going to be part of the solution to unlocking this talent that they have, and then hopefully bringing in more talent, augmenting with free agents or trades or whatever they're going to do this offseason, that they can be the best versions of themselves. I want to see a club whose sum is greater than the parts, Whereas last year was the exact opposite, right? It, I mean, the parts didn't even play well, but at no point did you ever feel like the Orioles were, exceeding expectations or overachieving or anything like
Well, the
that,
minute they
right?
canned Brandon Hyde, we knew there was going to be a
It was
fresh
over,
day. There,
and it was
like,
over, right?
and
I
here is the
mean,
fresh day, and here's the start. And and I'll say this for this guy and taking the thing over, and this is like the most respect I can pay to anyone as the kid of a broken home and a Venezuelan Dundalk family who owns a radio station 30 years. This guy's worked hard and come from nothing and come from the bottom up and done it the hard way and doesn't do it on the reputation of his name or his pedigree or his batting average at the big league level, or if he's competing with Albert Pujols, right?
yep.
As far as lifetime accomplishments in the game. And that was always the case for John Harbaugh versus his brother. His brother didn't play in the AFC Championship. You know what I mean? Like all of that. And I like that this guy has risen to the top of his industry. As I talk about Barry Trotz and my relationship with him or Marvin Lewis or whatever, he's done it the hard way. And most of the really good ones, as we talk about the Earl Weaver book and we talk about anyone that has succeeded coming from a different angle, much respect. And I hope he keeps his accent, and I hope I meet him one day. I hope I'm at a press conference one day. But the ship's kind of sailed on that, I think. I used to always think like that way in regard to what kind of guy, whether I get to ask questions, what kind of sense of humor, all those things that Johnny Oates had or didn't have, and Davey Johnson had in abundance, or Phil Regan and Mike Hargrove and I don't know, Ray Miller. I go back through all of this, Frank Robinson, even, right? That I love those relationships, but I watch it from the outside, and this is going to be a fun ride. It's new. I think about the day I was there when Mike Hargrove got hired. I think about the day I was there when Lee Mazzilli got hired. The day I was there when Davey Johnson came out from behind the curtain after they told his son he wasn't the guy. So I remember all of these things, but this is where the beginning of a pile diver would be. All of these guys that I've mentioned, we're all going to win the World Series here. None of them won jack.
Yeah.
None of
Well,
them. None of them.
and I'll go back to my overall prevailing point when we talked about Brandon Hyde's removal and what was going to come next, whether it was going to be Craig Albernaz or Buck Showalter coming back, right? I mean, whoever was going to be the manager, I'll go back to, and it doesn't have to be this blunt, but I want him to come in there and say to all these former 1-1s and first round picks and top 100 prospects and all of that, I don't care. It's time to go to work. And like, it can be smoother than that. Like you don't have to be an a-hole, but I, I don't care. Let's get to work
You're going to
because
earn at
the
bats
last
around
year and a
right?
half has not gone well for this
Right.
organization. It's time to go to work. And I hope the entire organization has that mindset if they're truly going to turn things around.
He's Luke. I'm Nestor. Plenty of baseball, plenty of football. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. Plenty of crab cakes, Coco's on Wednesday, and Pizza John's on Friday. My big appreciation to the Maryland Lottery. Come on, get a lottery ticket and eat some good food with us this week.